There's this idea that the universe works in a way of being balanced. Through the quote, every action has an equal opposite reaction.
For every good, there's a bad. For every no, there's a yes.
In order for the universe to stay at a constant plateau with no divots or deviations, no matter how small the subject,
we must be balanced.
But what if we want to change that? What if we want to disturb that balance? The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wao is a Pulitzer Prize winning book about the relationship between Yunior and Oscar,
two university roommates who journey through shaping years of their life.
The book explores the underlying idea of balance between two characters who juxtapose one another in every aspect of life.
Our narrator, Yunior, a self-proclaimed player, is a stereotypical college boy
who prioritizes social status
and how many chicks he could sleep with over maintaining a moral code.
On the other hand, we have Oscar, who Yunior describes as Biggie Smalls minus the smalls.
Is this overweight, nerdish character who is as weeb as they come, but they share one similarity though.
One that no boyness or weebness could change.
They were Dominican. Ironically, this isn't the topic that these two yin and yangs were able to bond over.
Although we see a few mentions of their culture mainly through Junior's disappointment and Oscar saying he's never met a Dominican like him before,
the real thing that these boys bonded over is, you guessed it, woman.
If that wasn't the most obvious college boy topic of interest, then I don't know what is.
Through this, though, we see how the boys are able to relate to one another, and this talk eventually leads to a point of intersection.
When both characters are at a low, and Yunior, being his egotistical character with a slight god complex, takes Oscar under his wing,
promising he will change him. And I believe this god-like self-evaluation of himself shows his situation as a male in America.
Even as society has progressed, a majority of men still have this underlying need for obtaining superiority.
Take sports, for example. 50% of all men around the globe find themselves enjoying sports, whether it be playing them or watching them.
The main thing that men really enjoy about it isn't really the game, though.
It's the challenge. This specifically highlights the primal instinct in men that they thrive for not just becoming the best, but obtaining this title by taking over others.
Although we can't fight as gladiators,
hunt woolly mammoths, or charge into battle on horses and carriage, men find other ways to fill this void.
Junior's way of doing so was taking Oscar as a student. Yunior saw this lazy, self-deprecating person and created this sort of social hierarchy
to not only improve Oscar, but in his mind, improve himself.
The American man, someone who seeks to improve and act superior, is a personality Yunior adopts when taking on Oscar.
But what about their Dominican culture? Both Oscar and Yunior eliminate the societal expectations of being Dominican. Throughout the story, Yunior talks about how the standard for Dominican men is to be good looking and have a lot of relations.
This is reflecting on how Yunior acts towards Oscar. In the excerpts, Yunior decides to help Oscar lose weight and talk to girls.
This reflects the expectations, since it shows how Yunior is unwilling to accept Oscar for who he is, but rather change him to make him good looking.
His unwillingness to accept Oscar shows the expectation for Dominican men, since Yunior believes Oscar has to be a certain way instead of who he wants to be.
This cultural expectation is also what shapes Yunior. He fits that expectation for how Dominican men have to be.
His whole personality, his appearance, and how he interacts with people is based on that expectation.
Also, both Oscar and Yunior are driven by wanting to be with women.
This is based on American and Dominican cultural expectations that men should have a lot of women.
This driving force is how the author shows culture in both the Dominican Republic and the United States.
It's how Diaz shows culture and how he shows why people act the way they do.
The two characters aren't driven by what they want and who they are as people. They're driven by cultural expectation. So why is this important?
Why is culture such an important role when analyzing a character, real or fake?
Because culture is what defines you.
Culture is the order you do your morning routine.
Culture is the time you eat dinner.
Culture is the way you go through life and how you choose to live it.
Every person from every country around the world experiences different types of cultures.
Meshing them together in this character stew that they drink, defining who they are.
Yunior and Oscar, from a tip of the iceberg perspective, share no similarities.
But the second you start to submerge yourself under that surface, you start to realize that even if it's not a lot, they're still connected.
And that's crucial to see why Yunior did what he did to improve Oscar, and why Oscar even listened to him in the first place.
As stated before, every action has its equal opposite reaction. And for these two young Dominican boys, the law stays true. For every Yunior, there's an Oscar in the world.
But that's okay.
But that's okay.
But that's okay.
But that's okay.